We're here with STEINSKI today, and I am Sean from TurntableTreats.com, and we want to say hey to you right off the top.
Well, hi, and thanks for having me.
We just want to start out with the most key question that'll start off the whole interview, which is the first song that moved you, that registered in your brain. What was the first song?
Ever?
That you recall.
Wow.
What track can you point to? What comes to mind?
From the soundtrack of the Broadway musical Fiorello, the song Little Tin Box, I would say, which I must have heard. Well, actually, no, I would have to say no. That would be the first one I bought. The first song and it wouldn't be the first song. And I wrote about this very briefly for Wax Poetics. It was a spoken word record by Buddy Hackett called The Chinese Waiter, and it was horribly racist. And when I was about 6, I thought it was the funniest thing I'd ever heard, even though I didn't understand 9/10 of the humor.
Was it on the Don Rickles vibe?
It wasn't on the Don Rickles vibe. It actually wasn't even a live recording. It was a studio recording.
Really?
And yeah, with no audience. It was dry. And he's speaking in sort of pidgin Yiddish Chinese, playing the part of a Chinese waiter who is welcoming several bad customers to the restaurant.
I could definitely see why it moved you.
yeah, exactly. And it was, I was really attached to it, and of course I stole it from my mother at some point, and I have it downstairs in my studio.
The original copy?
Yes, the original copy.
That's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, it's a 78 with an orange label. I forget, God, I used to know the label. I forget what it is now.
I would assume it has a bit of surface noise at this point.
Yeah, it's crap. And I eventually found out that it got reissued on LP, and I ran across that LP, and I have that too. But having the original vinyl is like a piece of the true cross for me. So
it's like the Holy Grail.
Well, sort of, except it never got away. It's always there. But yes, it's very Grail-like.
You must have a hell of a record collection.
I don't think so. And just going on volume, maybe it's about 10,000 records. But everybody seems to make the wonderful and generous assumption that I have. Oh, you must have all these fabulous break records and all this great old soul music, But I kind of have what most people my age would have, and then some. But I don't have. I never really got to the point where I was digging for wild, obscure breaks in 7 inches. I mean, it would have been wonderful if I was. At one point in summer of 1970, I think, I worked at the largest 7-inch warehouse in Philadelphia. And we could steal pretty much whatever we wanted. And I stole dumb shit, the Beach Boys.
You blew it.
Yes, exactly. I totally blew it. I look back on that and I go, well, there was an opportunity that was missed. But I mean, who knew?
Step away from the Help Me Rhonda.
Yeah, right. And I mean, there was so much great stuff there, and this was Philly, so there would have been local 7-inch. I filled orders for them all the time, and I was just like, oh, this goddamn old thing, who'd want that? Hang on for a second.
Sure.
I gotta call on the other line.
Go for it.
Okay, I'm sorry. Where was I? Oh, yes, the record collection that I don't have. I have lots. I have, a bunch of records, and when I started really collecting records in earnest, I started following every interest I had, all different types of jazz, old jazz. I have a lot of old jazz because I'm still mad about it. And I had, fair amount of old reggae and just old, it's a very mishmashy collection. And then I have a bunch of decent soul stuff and a bunch of decent funk stuff, but it's not what I wish it was, which is what everybody thinks, which is I have all these great old originals because I was collecting records back in the day, but I don't.
So, like you said, it's a mishmash. There's no focus or...
It's a mishmash. It's, I like all different kinds of things, and this represents all different kinds of things, but not in the way that everybody would, I think, assumes.
Is there any particular genre or type of record that you have an affinity for? Or?
Oh yeah, I mean I probably have the biggest spoken word collection anybody's ever seen. Not anybody. I spoke to one guy who obviously had tons more than me, but he was an A&R man out on the West Coast who was spending $1,000 a month on eBay, all different kinds of stuff. He was just buying lots of it, and he knew what he was doing. But in terms of not that any record collectors are normal, but in the not spending $1,000 a month on eBay category, I probably have the more spoken word records than anybody I've ever seen.
Those are your babies, pretty much.
Yeah, it's. I mean, I just like listening to people talk, and I like the rhythms of people talking and the music that's inherent in speech. I like that a lot.
The rhythm, yeah.
Yeah, and that's a big deal. I mean, if you listen to the records that Douglas and I made and that I made subsequently, that's there. That feel for that part of speech, that's there.
The whole narrative, definitely.
The narrative, and also just the way people talk, the rhythm, and how we were able to, relate it to music. That's a big thing with us.
Tell the story with the voice and also with the tracks too,
Yeah, and sometimes not even the narrative. Sometimes it's just the way the voice lays in there. It's like the equivalent of a keyboard part that helps make the hook, but that doesn't necessarily make a lot of sense. It's just a little, woohoo.
It cuts through, yeah.
Yeah, it cuts through. I mean, I like it. I like that a lot, the way things sit over music.
Do you still buy vinyl?
Occasionally, yeah. In fact, I just got a record by mail today, a 7-inch. In fact, go figure, because I ran across a tape that someone gave me that had the scratchiest ass copy of this record, and I did a little bit of web searching and found, so that's who it is. I thought it was Alvin Cash, and it wasn't Alvin Cash. It was actually an Andre Williams group called Bull and the Matadors, and it's a song called Funky Judge, which is really good.
Huh.
I got the 7-inch, and the backside is an instrumental, which is really sweet. And yeah, I'll digitize it, and then I'll probably sell the 7-inch. But yeah, I still buy vinyl.
So it's like a once in a while thing, or just?
Yeah, it's a once in a while thing in terms of buying. I mean, I download some, I buy CDs, trade CDs with other people. I wouldn't. Yeah, I do buy vinyl. Actually, I do buy vinyl. Depends on where I am and what the situation is, and if it's something I feel I couldn't get it on CD or it's easier to work with. But since I don't play vinyl out anymore, I'm completely computer-based now for that. So it's not, and my God, the storage problems are huge. So I really don't need to add to that.
I can totally relate to that. What do you personally think sounds better, vinyl or disc?
Oh, vinyl.
Yeah, is it a warmth thing?
Even though, I guess it's warmth. I mean, I never even really thought about it till a friend of mine and I started DJing dances where we actually had CDs playing, and the CDs sounded very brittle and high and piercing. And even though I have a friend who has tried to convince me over the years that, no, man, CDs are the truth. CDs are exactly what's there. And vinyl is colored by the filtering, by the tape. It's like, well, okay, I mean, maybe when enough people die off who are used to vinyl, then CDs will be the truth. But to me, vinyl sounds really great. I love listening to it. It sounds better to me loud. I have to work pretty hard to make, to EQ stuff so that it sounds good really loud out of the computer.
Yeah, to get rid of the digitized tinniness.
Yeah, the tinniness, and keep the bottom there. And I'm not perfect at it. I'm not 100%, but I try, and I'm aware of it.
What do you think about MP3 files versus audio CDs?
If I can't do anything else, I'll use an MP3, but I would much prefer to have something besides an MP3. If I could get a CD, that's better. MP3s also, a lot of times, I mean, when you buy them from iTunes, they're 192. That's already knocked down some. That's not so great. When I tried digitizing stuff as an MP3 rather than a WAV, I was digitizing it at 320. And it's good, but then why not just use a WAV? Fuck the MP3.
Exactly.
Me, I'm not, I don't care that much about, you can pack so much more in an iPod. It's like, the only time I use an iPod is when I'm at the gym. It's not like I walk around the city with headphones glued on anymore. I don't live in the city.
Right.
I live in the burbs, and I listen to CDs in the car.
It's definitely a convenience thing with the iPod.
Yeah. Well, I can see why a lot of people are into it. It's interesting too, because you do read people talking about how people's tastes are slowly eroding in terms of fidelity because they're so used to 192K files. I can't really say that I can hear the difference. I wish my ears were that acute, but they're not. But below that, you can tell sometimes.
It starts to get that MP3 warble.
Yeah. Even sometimes waves coming out of a computer will have that warble. I found with the program I use, I hate it, but right now there's nothing I can do. I can only hope that they improve the program.
I'll take a Q-burn over a warble any day.
Yeah, well, yes, exactly. And when it's live, you don't really notice the Q-burn that much.
Right, because the excitement and the moment and the volume.
It's the moment. It's live playing, and that's part of it. It's like when a guy, will screw up a guitar solo somewhat. It's live, so you give that up. It's like, here, we're real. It's in the moment.
Exactly. It's not pre-programmed crap.
Right.
What do you think about the whole downloading phenomenon? The illegal or legal?
Well, I mean, the people are going to do what's easiest for them, and they really are. In terms of the legality, illegality, I think when I first started out making sampled records, I was very willing to just say, yes, I'm doing a criminal thing, and there you go. And I'm going to keep doing it. I don't think I'm hurting anything. However, in the last year or so, I've been reading a lot of stuff by a law professor named Lawrence Lessig, who's written many, many really interesting books about culture, sampling, copyright, computer code, all this other stuff. And he's a very lucid writer. He can really make sense out of what would otherwise be sort of terrifyingly arcane stuff. And he makes a very good point for copyright, like what is copyright for? What is the law for? And the idea of perfect control of every aspect of every piece of information forever as being, as espoused by the RIAA is actually very bad for our culture because it locks shit up forever. The idea that no one can ever do a parody of Mickey Mouse, and the idea that all creativity that is based on things that have happened before will now stop. Whereas historically, through culture, through the history of culture, of all cultures, new stuff is based on old stuff. Mickey Mouse, his own self, is based on previous stuff. The ideas for many of Disney movies come from previous things. And the idea that all of a sudden this will now stop forever because the record companies and the movie companies feel threatened is actually a very insidious and bad idea. And there is a lot to be said for strict limits on copyright in terms of time, like not life plus 95 years, which is what it is now, or something ridiculous like that. Because as the joke goes, every time the copyright on Mickey Mouse is about to come up, Congress extends the law, and which is actually true, but that, leave us not get into the idea of corporations and government.
Yeah, right.
This guy's writings, and they are available. He's got a great website, and his books are popular and available, have really turned me around. I feel much, I wouldn't say vindicated, but I feel very different about what I do.
Right. Takes the pressure off a bit, I guess.
Well, it doesn't take the pressure off because obviously I'm still liable. I may have changed my opinion, but the RIAA hasn't changed its opinion.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, even with that, I feel better about it myself. I feel like, oh, okay, I have I'm not some rogue running in and stealing little bits of other people's shit and waving it around and going in like this graffiti-like way. There's a long, honorable, and obvious history to the idea of building upon the past. That's really what we're doing.
There's nothing new under the sun, that expression, it's definitely...
Yes, and that's the truth, and that plays a large part in this.
As far as the illegal downloading situation, do you think that's kind of like the Empire Strikes Back kind of thing, to where the labels have been sticking it to us for so long and people are just revolting and that kind of thing? I've heard that theory from a lot of people.
Well, maybe. I mean, it's convenient in terms of casting the major labels as baddies because, really, I think that too, but I think there's equally as much illegal downloading going on of fine independent labels that could conceivably be put out of business by this. So I think this is people doing what is convenient for people.
So you don't really think it's much deeper than that?
No, I don't think it's like, let's get the record labels. I mean, the record labels have always overcharged They've overcharged for vinyl. They've overcharged for CDs. They've overcharged for everything they've done. They've always raised spurious, home taping is killing music.
And it's illegal.
And it's illegal too, kids. That sort of nonsense. It was nonsensical garbage, and no one even believed it at the time. And they used to extort artists into signing these statements. Please don't tape my music. It's like, what?
Propaganda.
Yeah, motherfuckers. You're listening to taped music, which is really too bad. But I mean, the label was probably putting a lot of pressure on artists to do that.
Yeah, totally. To make sure they don't step out of their lines.
Step out of their lines. But they can say whatever they want. And they can criminalize whatever they want, and they're doing a very effective job of it. And they've even got people buffaloed to the point where, everybody believes it. Oh, yeah, it's criminal. Yeah, my 13-year-old is downloading this Jackson's material, and I got all mad. And there's that woman who the RIAA maintained that they had found illegally downloaded files on her computer, except she doesn't even really know how to use the computer, and she was a neighbor's kid. She wouldn't settle, because they always offer you, we're going to sue you for $500,000, or you can give us $350,000, or you can give us, $3,500 and settle.
Right.
She was like, well, no, I'm not going to settle. I'm going to fight it. And she's the only person who's ever fought it. And she's fighting it. I mean, I gave money. I was like, yeah, baby, go. If I could go hit somebody in the leg with a pipe on your behalf, I would do it. It's awful what they're doing. I talked to some of my English friends, because this hasn't quite hit there yet. What they have, their version of the RIAA, has come up with another brilliant idea, which is like all DJs that are using computers, in other words, everybody over in England who's using Rain or Serato, which I don't use, needs to pay £200 a year for a license.
Yeah, I heard of that, yeah.
Allow them to do this. So, I mentioned this to some friends of mine over there who are DJs, and they said, yeah, I'd like to see them try it. I said, well, I don't think you guys don't really understand how they're going to go about doing it. They're not going to come after you in a club. They're going to find some guy who's playing an iPod in a pub, and they're going to sue him for £500,000.
Send a message.
And they're going to make sure it gets in all the papers, and then they'll settle with the guy for £150 or something, and he'll sign a letter saying, I won't do it again, and they'll do it a dozen more times, and then you'll get that license. This is how they do it. I mean, I guess if you are a record company, it makes good sense, and it's logical. I mean, obviously it's awful, because what it comes down to is that they're making every use of the music, including traditional music, in traditional uses like DJing. It's illegal. It's actually illegal to DJ anything anywhere without permission from every owner of every recording. They're not doing it, but just because they're not doing it doesn't make it legal.
Right.
We are all in violation. It's insane. It's like in 1984 where they explain, it's like, well, the way you get societal control is you have so many laws that everyone's a criminal.
Wow, that's deep.
Yeah, because everyone's guilty. Oh, fucking Orwell was a genius, man.
That's like a statement in itself, everyone's a criminal,
Yeah.
Details at 11.
Yeah, everyone is a criminal. Details at 11. Have you ever burned a CD? We can send you to jail if we want.
Legally, yep.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. What about the bootleg situation as far as bootlegs in general and people bootlegging your stuff? How do you view that?
Well, it's not like I paid anybody in the first place. If somebody's going to bootleg my shit, our shit was bootlegged to begin with.
Right.
So I'm not, who am I to get upset about that? I mean, the only thing I was upset about is that, when the Ultimate Lessons came out, the guys who were doing that, which will be a distributor as yet unnamed, although if I ever meet anyone from that distributor, they will find themselves under a bus forthwith.
UK?
No, Americans.
Really?
And yeah, they put that stuff out, and people would say to them, so hey man, I mean, are you paying like, Shadow and Chemist and Stein? They went, yeah, we are. And like it got back to me, it's like bullshit. No, they're not. There's not even honor among thieves. They were just like lying, basically.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, and I've heard stories about these guys before. It was like, well, what do you expect? They're fucking liars. It's like, well, okay, it would have been nice, but all right, they're fucking liars. So, okay, well, that's a drag, but you can't look on every opportunity to have gotten money as you lost money. That would make me like the record companies.
Right.
And in terms of bootlegging in general, well, shit, man. I mean, I remember speaking with, I wrote an article for the Village Voice back in the 80s. I didn't write. I helped another guy who was a real writer write an article in the Village Voice about basically the Octopus records, Ultimate Breaks and Beats, 26 volumes, all bootlegged. And we talked to the guy who was the de facto A&R guy for that label. He worked at a record store in Times Square, and a lot of rappers and DJs and producers would come in asking for particular records. Did he have this record? There was a great break on this record. And when they got 6 or 8 requests for different records, they'd put out another volume. And they would run the records down. Oh, it's a European record. Oh, it's a Latin record. It's this, it's that. They'd find the records. They'd put them out. And I remember talking with him at one point because we interviewed him for the article, and he said, "Look, I get people coming into my store all the time looking for the Big Beat by Billy Squier.
Right. Now,
CBS won't put it out. What right do they have not to put it out?" Now, I never really looked at it that way, but it's true. It's like, well, we don't feel like putting it out. It's like, on one hand, I can understand that. On the other hand, people are going to get it, man.
One way or the other.
People are going to get it. I mean, I buy bootlegs. I buy bootlegs all the time. And if it weren't for the ability, I guess it's not really bootlegging, but the ability, I think, is it in Italy, to put out stuff that's older than, 40 years or something? There are all these great box sets coming out of Europe on old jazz and old country and western music and old rock and roll, and that shit wouldn't even be coming out.
Ever, yeah.
Yeah. Or it might come out as like, oh, yeah, we have a super duper box set for $80 or $90. Well, meanwhile, here you can get 6 CDs for $30.
Yeah, the pricing is definitely right. Time Life would gank you.
Yeah, right, exactly. Time Life, hell, man. I mean, Rhino. And I like Rhino. I know the guys at Rhino. And they do a great job, but still. Bootlegs definitely have their place, man. People got, that's what illegal downloads are. That's what ripping CDs are. I mean, if you really want to
break it down,
break it down. It's like, what is this? This is bootlegging, as opposed to piracy, which, of course, the RIAA doesn't want that distinction made. Piracy is you take a Michael Jackson record and you press up 25,000 copies of it and sell it as a Michael Jackson record.
Right.
Bootlegging is, hey, I got 1,000 copies of this 7-inch. What do you say?
Exactly.
Want to buy some? It's like there is a world of difference between here. Some out-of-print record that's getting bootlegged, as opposed to, oh yeah, we got, or I don't know, whatever the fuck people listen to these days, Christina Aguilera, or
right,
probably a million years behind, but that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's definitely a different scenario.
Yeah, but they want it all to be this sort of generalized, everybody looks like some kind of old-time burglar wearing a striped shirt and a black mask.
With the Keystone Cops chasing them down the street.
Yeah, exactly. Keystone Cops with the RIAA instead of the Keystone Cops, yeah.
Cue the chase music.
Yeah, that's kind of the way they come at it, and no, I don't really see that much wrong with it. And yeah, my stuff's gotten bootleg, but so what?
Yeah, at the end of the day, I guess, why stress,
Yeah.
How do you feel about the mashup scene?
Oh, it's kind of interesting. Some stuff's really good. It's nice that digital recording has gotten to the point where it has, where everybody with a laptop can do a mashup if they want. But it's a little bit like everybody in the world discovering their dicks.
At once.
Wow, this really feels good when I do this. All of a sudden there's like a million mashups of stuff. And I mean, I do mashups too. The computer program I use now to play out allows me to do some really cool 3 and 4 track at once type stuff.
Yeah.
I'm not against it. It's just, I don't know, it's like making a big deal about playing the guitar. It's like, okay, well, now play something good.
Did you hear about the whole Danger Mouse Grey album, Jay-Z, Beatles fiasco?
Yeah, of course, man. I downloaded the Grey album on Grey Day and all that nonsense. Yeah, sure.
Definitely good stuff. It launched his career, too.
Yeah, launched his career, and then you had record company executives on the one hand going, that guy's a criminal. On the other hand, trying to defend why they put out an album of acapellas. Exactly.
And then on the other side of the coin going, you want a job?
Right.
can you produce our next record for us, please?
Yeah, right. I don't think there's enough sides of your mouth to talk out of for the record company guys.
Definitely not.
People in the RIAA.
They need to develop more personalities than Sybil to deal with all their issues.
Well, yeah, and the only people who are, as usual, the only people who are making out are the lawyers. And some lawyers are my very best friends, and I got nothing against lawyers, but there are lawyers and there are lawyers, and these cats are, they're just feeding off this, and the public relations manipulation over time has gotten everybody pretty much buffaloed.
Yeah, definitely. It's amazing to me that Danger Mouse dodged the Apple bullet. I thought he was going to get crucified, man.
Yeah, well, who knows why that happened. Maybe Michael Jackson was too involved with his own legal problems to bother about Danger Mouse.
Yeah, it's tough to say. Are you familiar with Aviate Records, the label?
Of course.
Do you personally think that the whole party record scene, you're like a pioneer of it? Because I personally feel that you definitely are a pioneer of that.
That's interesting. I never really looked at it that way. I mean, I like those records. Some of the guys who do those records, like Crooklyn Clan and Frank DeLure, and those guys are very, very good at that, man. Obviously these are guys who are DJing out, and they know what part of what record works, and they make that shit happen, man. Totally. Those are nice records, and I buy them. Even though a lot of it, it doesn't really fit into my sets anymore because I just don't play a lot of mainline rap stuff, where you want, the chorus from the Answer record coming after the chorus of this record, and that kind of thing. But do we fit in as a party record thing? I guess, yeah. I suppose that's certainly a legit way of looking at it. Hell yeah.
If you trace it back, of course there was like the Big Apple mixes and the disco mixers and stuff before, but at the end of the day, your stuff made a lot of noise. To think that it didn't start the party record thing is,
Well, those records, those edits, the Ben Sechik things on Big Apple, and the Latin Rascals came slightly after us, but a lot of that stuff, it's pretty much tape editing. I think one of the differences with our stuff is that what we brought to it was a sensibility where it's like, oh, okay, and now we're going to have a slick segue, but instead of doing it with edits, we're going to cover it with a piece of a TV commercial that's going to work exactly in time so that as the last syllable ends, the next piece of music begins, and it's totally smooth. And not only that, but we've managed to drag in this other energy from another cultural reference that has nothing to do with, the wailing diva over, edited in some sort of stuttery way. We weren't. We used tape edits a little bit too, because Douglas was as good at that as he was at anything else, but we didn't rely on it to that extent. That sort of thing, I think, came from a straight-up DJ sensibility. And while I had been DJing parties, and Douglas never did, our sensibilities were record collector sort of. We were bringing in a lot of other elements, and guys like the Latin Rascals and the guys who were doing the work for Ben Sechik and guys like that, they were dance floor DJs who understood about editing pieces together to get the maximum energy out of it. But our stuff, we had a lot of other elements. We brought in pieces of music, like Hernando's Hideaway. People would come up and they go, well, how come you use that Junior record, man? That's not hip-hop. Or how come you use Culture Club? It's like, because we felt like it.
Exactly.
It sounded good. It worked in the flow. What do what's everybody upset about?
Back then, in the 70s and 80s and stuff, you could come out of a B-52's record into an Africa Bambaataa record, and people would keep dancing,
Yes, absolutely. Which is what my current sets are based on, is that early sensibility where it's like, we're here to dance and enjoy ourselves and listen to a lot of different stuff, and it's not religion.
Right. Now it's like try to come out of a DMX record and go into a Strokes record, they'll shoot you. Yeah. All the places and all the radio stations and all the clubs, they're segregated by genre.
Well, yeah, which is really moronic. I find that's really unfortunate because I loved being at the Roxy and having Bambaataa play all different kinds of stuff and having people just accept it. And now it's become very rigid, and I'm certainly I take advantage of this in my live sets because, I figure, well, if people know me because of those records that we did, then I'm going to play fucking anything. Fuck it. If they're sitting there going, well, geez, this ain't a trance record, it's like, well, you're in the wrong place. I want to play, that's my whole shit's built on, 5 minutes of 60 different kinds of things. So I'm going to keep doing it. If I go out on tour a couple of times and I really fall down and it's really a failure, well, okay. But I absolutely am committed to giving this particular thing that you're talking about a try because I hate that it's like that. I really don't like that people go, well, geez, man, how come you played like that early hip hop record and then you played this, you played that Nelly record. And it's like, yeah, so Nelly, man, that's like some St. Louis. I don't like that. It's like, well, geez, man, I don't know what to tell you. I never make distinctions. Like, I'm not capable of it because I don't spend enough time listening to radio and in clubs where they're only concentrating on one thing. So I would run out of options very, very soon. I mean, I knew about Nelly because I was in a Radio Shack one day buying something, and they had the stereos on, and on came Country Grammar, and I heard it. I went to the guy. I went, "Do you have any idea who this is playing on the radio?" He looks at me with like this superior look, it's like this young kid. And yeah, man, that's Nelly. You like that? Like, you little dick.
Little do you know.
I walked out of there. I walked 4 blocks to Rock and Soul. I bought 2 copies of the thing. It was like, oh God, this is good.
The next time you hear that record, think David Essex Rock On. The part, the parts that go doom doom.
Did you ever hear the mix CD I did called Nothing to Fear?
No, I haven't.
Oh, I'll say. Well, we'll swap addresses and I'll send you that. I think you'll get a kick out of that CD. It took me almost 2 years to do.
Really?
Yeah, and it's got Nelly in there among other things. I turned Country Grammar into sort of like an infomercial about weed. There's a lot of there's a lot of different things in there, moving into other things, and I worked very, very hard on that. It's probably one of the only things I can still stand to listen to. That I used to do. I was like, yeah, okay, I don't mind this. I don't mind this, because I listen to records that I did, and I go, oh man, why did I just repeat the chorus? It sounds like dog shit. This, that, the other. All the kinds of things that people who make records say to themselves. But that I really liked, and it got really good press. I didn't sell a lot of it, but I sold some, and I think you'd enjoy that.
It's a labor of love, those are usually the best things.
Yeah, the Nelly thing worked out very well in that context. Yeah, it does have that. It does have that kind of swell and flow that Rock On has.
Yeah,
and that's a really great tune too, man. I mean, that came at that same era when, like T-Rex was doing all those murky songs.
Dreamweaver.
Yeah.
I can't believe that no one has ever sampled that Rock On part straight up, because that's...
Yeah, well, it's slow, and it also, I seem to recall having used it in some industrial films, that it has some sort of an odd, not meter, but it's like one of those, where the fuck is the one in this? It's like the guy starts singing on the 2 and.
Yeah.
One of these things is like, what, where, what, you can dance to it, but it's kind of hard to edit into it. It's interesting. I remember thinking that with one of the projects that I was working on.
Structurally, it's odd, I guess.
Yeah.
As far as your favorite current artists, what are run down some of your favorite semi-current or current artists that you like?
I can. There's things that I'm listening to, but they're not. A lot of them aren't exactly current.
Right.
Like I like this. There's this guy, I don't know much about him. He's a dancehall rapper named Apache Indian, who I think is sort of old, and he is British and Indian. And he's done a couple of things that I think are just awesome, including he did a remix, apparently an authorized remix of The Israelites by Desmond Decker.
Whoa.
That's fantastic. Fucking awesome.
There's a Hasidic reggae artist. Are you familiar? I forget his name.
Matis Yahoo, yeah, sure. Yeah, he's not exactly to my taste, but I DJ'd at an event a few weeks ago at the Bowery Ballroom that was co-sponsored by Heeb magazine and Matis Yahoo's record company, J-Dub. not the company that he signed to, but the company that he started. And I played this at that event, among other things, because it starts off. It's wonderful. It starts off with this guy going in like totally reggae style, you know, or dancehall style. He goes, "This one going out kosher style." It's like, yeah, well, you can't beat that for a Jewish event.
It definitely fits the mood.
Yeah, right. Yeah, really.
Without a doubt. What are your all-time favorite artists? Run down a few.
God, that one's hard, man. I mean, you know, in certain respects, there's the usual suspects. You know, Coltrane, Charlie Parker. Oh man, all-time faves. Art Tatum is a piano player, is absolutely insane. Oh goodness, there's an very old jazz group called McKinney's Cotton Pickers. Absolutely colossal. Really, really great. They were led and arranged by a guy named Don Redman, who was really, really good. Goodness, all-time faves. I mean, probably for vocals and the international vibe, Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan. I was really lucky to see him a couple of times in New York before he got sick, and he was colossal. Some of the more amazing things I've ever seen. The Rebirth Brass Band from New Orleans. Some of the best live music I've ever seen in my life. Dr. John, in some of his incarnations, has been absolutely colossal. The man's an amazing talent.
Quietly made a living for decades, you know.
Well, he's also probably one of the best piano players on earth. I mean, incredible. There's a set of tapes I have that he made that are instructional tapes. 5 hours of instructional cassettes.
Whoa.
How to play the piano that are like a textbook of jazz and general American piano playing, where he will play something 9 different ways because 9 different people would play it that way. You know, analyze it by style, analyze it by why is it being done this way, what purpose does it serve in the overall structure of the song, this figure. He's very, very, very good.
Yeah, he did the Super Bowl recently, I believe, right?
Oh, did he really?
Halftime, yeah.
Oh, man.
This past year, I believe. Him and a whole bunch of New Orleans artists.
Yeah, that would kind of figure, sure.
I'm not totally familiar with his music, but there's one track that I love. What's the name of it? Moscocious? Is that the name of it?
Oh, yeah, Moscocious. Yeah.
Love that track.
Well, you know, a lot of his tracks, he's backed by the meters.
Yeah, the funky meters, right?
Yeah.
Solid
Not
stuff.
The funky meters, the real meters, the funky meters.
The controversial topic.
Yeah. Well, that was the funky meters is the meters without the original drummer. And the original drummer was a fucking genius, and he's back with them now.
Oh, really?
But yeah.
I know it's a very touchy subject for many people. You know?
Actually, I'm one of the few people who saw the real meters back before I even realized who they were. A friend of mine, they came to Philadelphia after they had been opening for the Rolling Stones on several legs of some tour.
Really?
And I said, "We got to see them, man. You won't believe it." So we went, and you know, they played 2 shows in the night. The first night, the first show, there were 12 people, and then the second show there were 5. And we had such an amazing time. I stayed for both shows. I was late for work. I didn't care. It was like, oh God, this is so fabulous.
Talk about intimate. Jeez, 5 people.
Oh, it was amazing. They came down off the stage and danced with us.
Whew.
Oh, it was incredible. They were so good.
Their stuff is beyond funky. It's like ridiculous how funky this stuff
is. Yeah, I know.
is.
It's incredible, isn't it? Those guys, they were fucking geniuses. Let's see. Who else do I like a lot? Well, the meters. You know, I mean, I don't even play the meters out anymore because I played them for so long that I can't stand to do it anymore. You know, I don't want to become so identified with that. And everybody, of course, is into the meters.
They'll be waiting for it, yeah.
So yeah, and I don't want to do that. God, who else? Oh, of course, you're hitting me at an odd time. Let me go downstairs to the studio.
Let's go to the laboratory.
Let's go to the lab. Yeah, exactly. Maybe the book's down there. Maybe I took it down there to get out of my wife's path. Who knows? Let's see. I've looked everywhere else 7 or 8 times while we were talking.
How about favorite album while you're waiting to think about the artist?
Album? Geez, like one or among many?
Let's do the Desert Island disc thing.
Oh, Lord. That would be hard. I'd say probably there's a double album that John Coltrane did called The Gentle Side of John Coltrane. that I used to listen to on planes all the time because I thought, you know something? If I'm ever going to go down in a plane, I want this to be the last thing I hear. The Gentle Side of John Coltrane, I forget where I read this. When I was reading a lot about jazz, I read about that. And what it was, there was apparently a time when Coltrane had a saxophone stolen, and it had his favorite mouthpiece on it. And until he got the new mouthpiece, and he would like go to pawn shops and stuff and just try out mouthpieces of an afternoon. Until he got another mouthpiece like that, he wouldn't do like the screaming, hollering shit.
Wow.
He would just play soft. He would just play soft, gorgeous stuff. And he got Johnny Hartman on a. I think he did one album alone and another album with Johnny Hartman of ballads. And Impulse eventually compiled it into The Gentle Side of John Coltrane. And it is stunning, absolutely stunning. It's probably I'd have to say if there was one record, that would probably be it. I mean, there's others. You know, there's records that I wore out on vinyl completely, like The Best of the Spinners on Atlantic, and a couple of other things. But that Coltrane record would probably be the number one. It's just it's a record you can live to. It's wonderful. It's really great.
Hey, did you see that new Visa card commercial on television?
No, I don't have. Unfortunately, I stopped watching television quite a few years ago, so I'm not up on many pieces of popular culture.
You know what the song is in the commercial?
I'm afraid to ask.
Looking for the Perfect Beat.
Oh yeah, someone told me that got licensed.
It is bananas.
Really?
I was sitting on the couch reading the newspaper. The TV was on, and out of my TV comes. I'm like.
Man.
I looked up at the screen, expecting, MTV documentary or something.
Right.
Visa commercial. Unbelievable. Just hearing that come out of my TV in that context blew me apart.
How interesting. Yeah, I've had a couple of things that I've done licensed for use in the UK, and that always surprises me. You know, I never look at my stuff as licensed, or didn't used to look at my stuff as licensable. Now, I suppose if I was going to do original stuff, and I hope to do it at some point, I'll probably have one eye cocked on that for sure. Yeah,
totally. I mean, it's just to hear it in that context is just odd, and it gave me chills actually. To hear it. I don't know why. It just did.
And that's not the kind of thing you hear that much unless you're going to go to some old school electro night.
Yeah, and it's definitely one of my favorite records ever. LL Cool J's current single samples Perfect Beat as well.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. He must have just straight paid Warners for that.
It's the dominant sound throughout the track, and Jennifer Lopez is on it.
Jesus.
Yeah, so that's two licenses within a few months of each other,
Well, my goodness gracious.
It's crazy. I mean, I look at it as the reason it's happening is because people my age are now in charge. That's why you're getting the resurgence of the electro and all the early stuff,
Yeah, I mean, I'm amazed at the popularity of even some of the newer things that are qualified as electro clash. It's like, damn, this thing sounds old to me.
It's definitely an interesting genre.
Yeah. I know one of the guys who is behind one of the larger groups. I know Fisher of Fisher Spooner.
Oh, yeah, great stuff.
Yeah, and, he pays a lot of attention. He knows what he's doing. But it's still amazing to me because, like, damn, this stuff sounds, it's very derivative of the, 1980s-ish stuff.
Big time.
Yeah.
I did an interview a few months ago with Man Parrish, and I was...
Really?
We touched... Yeah.
Oh, that record. Oh, God, that record.
Yeah. Actually, you know what? As much as I love hip-hop bebop, I like Boogie Down Bronx better. Isn't that weird?
Yeah.
We were talking about the whole electro clash thing and about how he's getting emails from 16-year-old kids saying,
I think your stuff's the best.
Yeah.
I heard about it last week.
Yeah, he told me he's in litigation with a couple people regarding royalties and payment and whatnot,
Yeah, I mean, there certainly were people who got dicked around totally, man, who were not thinking past the money in the hand and didn't understand about these other rights, because who did, man? I mean, shit, even me and Douglas, who, I was an advertising copywriter at a big advertising agency, and Douglas was a very talented recording engineer at a sophisticated studio that was doing a lot of advertising. We didn't even understand about stuff like that.
At that point in time, I mean, there was minimal money in the business, so why would you be thinking about money in the business?
Nobody is thinking like, hey, 20 years from now, we could be making big money off of this when we're nostalgia.
Yeah, exactly.
Who knew?
I also found out from him that he and Raul Rodriguez were two sisters. High Noon.
Really?
That's them with session singers, yeah.
Wow, no kidding.
Never knew it.
It's funny, I remember there was one day I was at the, I think it was a dance that Bambaataa may have been putting on at Roseland, and I was standing by the bar at one point. There was Raul, and we were talking. And he looked up at me and said, hey, man, how come you never used In the Jungle, Brother, on that James Brown record? And I said, geez, I don't know, man. I don't really know why we didn't. Maybe because everybody, had already used it, or something. It's funny. That people do ask that occasionally. How come you didn't use that In the Jungle, Brother break on the James Brown lesson?
Maybe it's too obvious,
Yeah, I guess we thought so at the time. We were, it's like, I've heard that people use that in the clubs already.
You should just tell them, we didn't use it so NWA could get credit for using it 10 years later. That's why we didn't use it.
God.
They launched a career with that sample, with that 100 Miles and Running track.
Yeah. You know that Eazy-E's dad was the 103rd Street, Watts 103rd Street band? Charles Wright.
No way!
Yeah, Charles Wright and Eric Wright.
I never knew that.
It knocked me on my ass when I found that out.
That explains their cover of Express Yourself.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Nuts. Gonna get to the DJ thing real quickly.
Oh, sure.
Up until recently, the DJs and the recording artists knew totally about the past and the history and what came before them and stuff. Whereas today, they don't really seem to even care. They don't want to know where the songs came from for the most part. And they really don't have appreciation for old school artists, the founding fathers of hip-hop and other genres, and they're just into the current hits and the stuff, in my opinion. I mean, do you think that's true? And
I think that as an argument has been around, or as a lament, I should say, rather, has been around for a while. I remember speaking to a couple of people at Tommy Boy in the early 90s, and them saying, man, we're getting tapes from these kids that are fifth-generation samples. They don't even know what the original record is that's being sampled.
Yeah.
This has always been the case. And it is anecdotal. I think there's probably more instances of what you're talking about than instances of people like, say, Cut Chemist or Shadow, who know exactly.
They're purists, though, That's the real deal.
Yeah, they're purists, and they have a tremendous respect for the past. And do quite well with it, too.
I'm speaking more about, like, the mainstream MTV watching DJ, cookie cutter, out of a box,
That's true, but, those guys are not necessarily going to be the cats who are around, because there's a lot of people with exactly the same knowledge, and it's hard to be clever if you're that limited.
Yeah.
If you're sampling off of other things, and that's your only frame of reference is popular stuff, then you're not going to get as far as somebody who, at this point, if you're into like crunk or hyphy or something like that, if you're going to invest in a Triton box or whatever the box is that people are using a lot these days,
right,
and sitting around and fucking around with it and saying, oh look, I can get it to do this, and that's kind of interesting, where you're really going to go up against somebody like Timbaland.
Right.
Somebody like that who's colossally talented.
Totally.
Who can come up with new shit every time he scratches his ass, practically. That's a real difference. And those guys are, yes, they do use samples, but I defy anyone to say, oh, yeah, well, it wouldn't have been a hit if he didn't have that sample. He's really good.
Yeah, he's a genius, without a doubt.
Yeah. And guys of that ilk, guys who are at that quality. I like him, say, more than, say, I'm not feeling Little John
right
quite as much. But, okay, Little John certainly got the touch. I'm not arguing. There's a couple of guys out in the Bay Area, whoever's producing Keek the Sneak stuff, You know, I like his stuff. Some of E40's stuff is pretty good, and that stuff isn't necessarily resampled.
Right.
That's kind of new. I mean, it depends. I mean, I don't really get a chance to hear a lot of mainstream stuff, you know. So I'm not really that familiar. I mean, there's even some things that are straight up mainstream, you know, straight up gangster, horrible Southern mainstream stuff that I think is awesome, man. You know that Whisper song by the Yin Yang Twins.
Great gimmick, yeah.
Fucking love it, man. I mean, you know, you talk about drawing a line between Nelly and Rock On. I think you can draw a direct line between that and Peggy Lee's Fever.
The vibe, yeah.
Between The Way You See My Dick. Shit, man. You know, that's exactly the same feel. Finger snaps and this understated, the understated way that the lyric comes in. You know, very much.
Very subtle, but in your face at the same time.
Yeah, and I mean, yeah, sure. I mean, you know, it's very contemporary in the fact that, wow, they actually say dick, you know.
Right.
Well, you know, okay. So, you know, Keek does that too. There's that song, you know, Let Me See the Deerfoot. You know, it's like, oh my God. More raps about the coochie. Boy, oh boy.
Camel toe.
Yeah, they're right. Is this ever breaking ground here? You know, oh, he's fat. But, you know, that's it. You know, I mean, that's what, you know, that's going to be the comment of a 55-year-old person. You know, and you know, that's me. You know, it's like, gosh, guys, couldn't we have a little subtlety here? On the other hand, I like that Yin Yang Twins track. So where am I? I'm nowhere.
As far as the age thing goes, I think it's true that you get older and your tastes change, but a good song is a good song. You know, I mean. Yeah,
I'd like to think so. I mean, there's, you know, but like I said, there's a lot of contemporary stuff that I don't really feel that much. You know, or, you know, contemporary techniques that I don't feel that much. That sort of, you know, that technique of doing pitch switching on a female voice as she's singing.
Oh, yeah.
You know.
Cher syndrome.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. You know, I have a friend who's really good at engineering stuff like that, but it don't make me jump up and down, you know.
Yeah, definitely not. What do you think about the California Bay Area scene versus the New York scene right now?
Gosh, I don't know enough about either one of them to really say. I mean, there's things that I like. I mean, there's a lot of Bay Area stuff, like a lot of the stuff that's on Quantum that I think is pretty great. I like that.
Lyrics Born is nasty, man.
Yeah, Lyrics Born. Chief Excel, I think, is a great producer. You know, there's a lot of stuff out there that I like, but I don't really have, you know, the overall view of what's going on to be able to say in some general way, oh, I think this versus that. I especially don't even know that much about what's going on in New York.
Right.
To tell you the truth. I mean, I spend a lot of time listening to, you know, you were talking about artists who I think are really good that I listen to now. There are these two guys. There's a Brazilian guy named Maga Bo and an American guy who goes by Philistine, and the two of them together work under the name Sonar Calibrado.
Really?
And it is fucking awesome. You can download their shit if you just search for Sonar Calibrado. They've got a website, and you can download. I think there's like 2 3/4 of an hour mixes, and they're excellent. These guys, they're both laptop guys, and they mix drum and bass, Brazilian, all different kinds.
Wow.
Hip hop. I really like it, and I don't like it in the way that, you know, a lot of people like international stuff because it's like it's good for you, you know. It's
cultural,
you know, oh yeah, cross-cultural. Hey, we're all one. You know, it's like, you know, because I've been into every international music for about 15 minutes, and then it all sounds, you know, like you listen to it and you go, I defy you to tell me, is this Peruvian, Greenland, what? You know, it's like all that shit sounds the same, man, because you got a limited bunch of options if you're not using, you know, electronic stuff in the studio. So all these guys in, you know, colorful little hand-woven vests and shit like that, you know, it's nice, you know, and if you were there getting loaded with them, it would be awesome. But,
right.
You know, it's not, you know, otherwise you're just, you know, you're banging yourself on the head with it. Whereas, if you take elements of the stuff and mix it up, I mean, even some of those compilations that come out on, like, Putumayo, this contemporary stuff, it's like, a lot of that stuff, that's a little polite for me. It doesn't really make it. I bought a lot of them for jobs that I was doing, and that stuff doesn't hold up for me as much as what these guys are doing, which is like dirty, nasty. Let's just take some shit and throw it the fuck in there and see what happens. And I really like that.
It seems that Putumayo stuff is like a lot of it's the pop stuff from that particular
it is.
area of the
pop
world.
Brazilian or pop Spanish, and it's nice, man. I mean, not to put anybody down, but a lot of women in their 40s go apeshit for that. It's fine. It just hits that demographic, and they will spend the money on it, and God bless them. But it's not. It's really not my thing.
Not your cup of tea.
Yeah, really, definitely not my cup of tea. I mean, I'll listen to it and all that, and I'm not gonna, I'm not gonna tear my hair out if my wife wants to listen to it in the car. But it doesn't, that doesn't really do it for me. It does have that medicinal feel. You should be listening to this.
Exactly.
And it doesn't have the feel of like the old Brazilian pop stuff, like Jorge Ben or Tim Maia when he was doing like really hot shit. I mean, that stuff burns. This stuff is like, it's light.
I guess it's kind of like when they make salsa for your Tostito chips in America. They don't make it, even the hot variety isn't really hot,
Yeah, right.
It's kind of watered down.
Exactly, yeah. It's like, hot is not, hot is pretty medium. It's true, it's true.
It's kind of watering the whole culture down with the music too,
Well, maybe not. I'm sure Brazil's a big country, so there's probably pockets of stuff. This is just what's getting licensed to Putumayo.
Yeah, force-fed on the culture-seeking music buyer.
Yeah, it's kind of like that, as opposed to, say, some of Mulatu's stuff from Ethiopia, which is really hot and really hot and like burning. A lot of the stuff on the Ethiopics. African compilations and then my God, how many are there now? There's like 20 odd. Those are really, God, there's some insane shit on that, man. But all that stuff's kind of old. It's not the more moderny, glossy, guitar-y, bling, 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 bling kind of stuff. It doesn't have that same feel that, say, like Fela did.
Oh yeah, Fela Kuti, yeah. Amazing stuff. There's a whole new resurgence of people getting into his stuff now, which is great.
Well, I play his stuff out, man. I think that it's great. I love these grooves that just sort of go on and on and on and on. They're wonderful.
DJ Spinna and those cats are deep into him, which is a good thing,
Right, yeah.
Do you think that people overseas in the UK and Japan and stuff have a deeper appreciation for the music than we do here?
Sure. I mean, they have a deeper appreciation for music in general. Because here, it's what's next. It's always about what's next. What's next, what's next, what's next. And those cats, jazz lived there for a lot longer than it did here, and a lot of things do. That which is good, and, depending on your point of view, not so good. If I wanted to tour as an oldies act, I could probably do it for a long time. Go to Japan, play a bunch of old rap records, tell people about how it used to be at the Roxy and some shit. I wouldn't want to do that. That's like being Chubby Checker, and playing the twist forever.
Shout out to Chubby Checker.
No love lost with Chubby Checker, Although I have to say, for someone who named himself after Fats Domino, Fats Domino is fucking awesome, man. I actually shook the hand of the guy who produced his records once, Dave Bartholomew, and it was still an unforgettable thing. I still remember how his hand felt.
Really?
Oh, man.
They actually have a little Fats Domino tidbit I learned recently. Actually, I could share it with you. I interviewed Jimmy Castor. And,
oh, my God.
And he was telling me about when he first got on with the teenagers when Lyman bowed out. I think he was 13 at the time or whatever when he came in as Frankie's understudy. He was on the bus with Little Richard and this person and that person, and he was telling me how Fats Domino was like, "Hey boy, what are you doing on the bus? Sit down, Like he was telling me what the whole vibe was like on the bus and the tours and.
I bet that was incredible.
It's nuts. When you said Fats Domino, I'm like, whoa,
Yeah, he lives in Vegas now, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's a Vegas man.
Yeah. I saw him when he played at SOBs a number of years ago.
Oh, 2000, I believe it was.
Yeah.
Wow.
I was there for that because not only because of It's Just Begun and all of the hip hop stuff, but because when I was in high school, New York radio was pretty good. New York Top 40 radio was pretty happening. And there was a lot of stuff that would get played that you would never hear on the radio now. And two of the songs that were huge when I was in high school were Joe Cuba's song
Bang Bang, woof,
and Jimmy Castor's song Hey Leroy.
Oh, go to your mama.
Yeah, and Hey Leroy, got so big that they were playing it on the PA system of the high school as everybody was walking to homeroom.
No way.
And that was my first exposure to the Jimmy Castor bunch.
Unbelievable.
And when it reappeared again, and then of course when I lived in Philadelphia and was listening to all the great music in Philadelphia, he was on the air with Bertha Butt Boogie and
King Kong and all that stuff.
And that stuff. And then when I got to New York, it was like, oh man, you'd hear this amazing song that these guys were breakdancing to, and it's like, yeah, man, it's Just Begun by Jimmy Castor. It's like, holy shit! So I had to make that show, and there was a moment in that show that was incredible because he played It's Just Begun at the end. You know, I mean, he held off, and like the Rock Steady crew was in the house.
Oh my God!
And he said, you know, I'd like to, mention we're about to play this song. I'd like to, point out that the Rocksteady crew is here.
Oh, my God.
Thanks a lot for coming, guys. And he said, they just played at the White House for the president. It wasn't, I think it was actually before 2000. I think it was like in 1998 or something. And he looked at, I think Crazy Legs was standing there, and he said, guess that was the greatest moment of your life, huh? And this kid looked back at me and said, no, man. This is the greatest moment of my life. Man,
that's gangster. Yeah,
that's so. And he started playing It's Just Begun, and these guys went apeshit.
Unbelievable! I absolutely must send you that Castor interview because
I'd love to hear it.
To tell you, it would just take 10 years to tell you about this stuff.
Yeah, he was incredible when I was in high school. I actually, and at a later point, after that, I did the music. A lot of the music for the International Latin Music Hall of Fame presentations in like 5, 6, or 7 years ago, however long it was. This guy roped me into doing it, some producer that I was working with. And, I did a whole bunch of music medleys of famous old Latin guys and all this. And they said, come to the presentation, man. So it was like this college auditorium in the South Bronx someplace. And we went, and Joe Cuba was there. And as we were leaving, he was hailing a cab, and I went over and said, man, I got to shake your hand. You don't understand what this means to me, There aren't that many people who I thought were that significant in my musical life that I wanted to do that to, but it was like, man, I shook Joe Cuba's hand, and I felt very, very good about it. It's funny, talking about all this stuff, I realize, a lot of this stuff is very significant to me, and it was a lot of fun. And I guess part of why I like DJing and why I want to get out and DJ is because it's my chance to play some of this music that means so much to me, and I love getting a chance to hear it really loud. That's so great when you can DJ and just hear this shit burningly loud.
It has a bigger effect, without a doubt.
Oh yeah, it's wonderful.
All right, since you have a time constraint, let's try and breeze through these. I got a few more.
Okay, sure. What are they?
For those that don't know, explain to us how the whole lesson thing came about, the first one.
Well, the first one was Douglas and I had a friend who was working as a producer at CBS Records, producing. This was back in the days when CBS Records had a separate staff of producers that produced radio commercials. And this guy was working with Douglas all the time, and they were friends. And he came into Douglas's studio one day with a copy of Billboard and plunked it down, and he said, hey, there's a contest here that you should enter. And it was the Tommy Boy Switch the Licks Master Mix contest for Play That Beat, Mr. DJ. And Douglas and I were hanging around at that point and going to the Roxy like religion. Like 3 Fridays out of 4, we were at the Roxy. And he showed it to me, and I said, do you want to do it? And he said, yeah. He said, we could do it here. And he had, at that time, what was considered a state-of-the-art 8-track production. With tape. 2 2-track tape machines, an 8-track machine, and a turntable. And a good board with some good EQ and compressors. And, it was a, commercial studio, but he could stay as late as he wanted and do whatever he wanted. And so we blew into the studio one day at, we learned about it. We said, okay, let's do it. So we start Friday night? I forget if we started Friday night or we started Saturday. And I brought about 6 crates of records. I had been DJing dances in Brooklyn at that point. And Douglas knew the sound library at the studio inside and out. And, we looked at the specifications. It's like, should be 5 minutes long. Okay, fine. And we knew what we wanted to start with. Douglas edited the start together, with this big downbeat. And we worked for like 2 8 or 10 hour days in his studio. We finished up Sunday night, and that was it. Sent it in, and we had no idea if it was how this was going to work or anything like that. And of course, the deadline came and went. We didn't hear anything, and either Douglas called or I called, and Tommy Boy Records said, "Oh yeah, we haven't had the judging yet. Don't worry. What did you send in the tapes?" Like, "Yeah, we sent it." Okay, fine. And then one day, this was I was working at the advertising agency, suit and tie job, and an office, and meetings and the whole nine. And I came out of a meeting. I'm walking into my office, and my secretary goes, "Hey, that contest! You won that contest! The guy just called." I said, "What guy?" Tommy from Tommy Boy. He just called. So I, picked up the pink message slip, and I walked into my office. I went, "We won! Holy shit!" So I called up, and I said, "Yeah, let me speak to Tom Silverman." He said, "Yeah, so you're Stein, right?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Yeah, you guys won the contest." I said, "Wow, no kidding." He said, "Now, let me ask you a question. Who are you? What kind of master mixer has a secretary?" I said, "Well, I work in an advertising agency." He said, "Yeah, that other guy had a receptionist." I said, "Yeah, he works at a recording studio." So that evening, we went down there, and, they couldn't believe it. I was like, "Wow, you guys are old and white." Like, "Yeah." And they said, "Your mix was so much better than everybody else's, we had to play it last. We knew it was going to win."
Wow.
They said, all the judges just went ape shit. And so, whatever, I don't know what day of the week that was, but that Friday, one of the people from we went to the Roxy with somebody from Tommy Boy, and all of a sudden, there we are standing next to the DJ booth, and here's Bambaataa reaching down to shake our hands going, "Yeah, man, that was a great mix."
Oh, man.
It's like, oh, my goodness.
Whew.
This was, that was a fairly life-changing experience, I have to say. So that's how that happened. And then we did the James Brown thing, because that sort of came out of a joke where we were going to go through all the James Brown records and pick out all the greatest uhs, and like that. And it was going to be ha 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 ha. And I was like, well, why don't we do like one of those records of James Brown? And I was like, yeah, okay, sure. Yeah, because it had gotten, the first one had gotten terrific response, amazing radio response. People someone told us that in Philadelphia, you could buy a cassette of an air check of the thing on the street for $20. I knew guys in England that I subsequently met later who said that they had paid like $60 and $80.
Unbelievable.
Cassettes of those air checks. So we said, "Oh, fine, man. Let's do a James Brown one." We did that. That was huge. And then somebody was going to write a book about the history of hip hop. And so Tom and whoever the publisher was were going to do some sort of a deal where we were going to do the record to go with the book, and why didn't we license Dance to the Drummer's Beat, because that would be a great record. So we completely did the mix, and then they found out that Herman Kelly wasn't licensing shit to anybody.
Really?
And so then that became another bootleg.
As far as the Play That Beat mix thing, real quick, personally, like I said, I started in the summer of '83, and I remember early on, for me, I would hear the Play That Beat mix on KISS, and I distinctly remember one time just hearing the start, and hearing that drop that they used to have on KISS, that thing that went, KISS, KISS.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And me and my friends would be like, what is this mix? What is this mix? We thought it was a KISS exclusive, and then we heard it on another station, and since that day, I've been chasing the record, and I don't own the damn thing.
Oh, I can hook you up with it on CD.
What's crazy is to the point now where originals with the Mastered by Herbie stamp on the runoff, one just went for $150.
Yeah, I know. Freddie Fresh told me that, which I didn't realize. I didn't even realize how good some of the bootlegs of it were.
And the boots are going for $20 or $30.
Yeah, I know. Isn't that wild? And rock and soul has always had the same bootleg from the first month. The red label bootleg.
Yeah, it's real ugly.
Yeah, it's real ugly, but I have one because it's like I have to.
Just to have one, yeah.
In itself, that's a form of tribute.
As far as the Play That Beat mix, this is something that you have to settle for me personally once and for all.
Huh.
What the hell is that New York is Red Hot piece?
Oh, that's I thought it was the NYC Peach Boys, but I think it's some downtown group.
It's been driving me nuts.
Who was it that did Cavern? The thing that got lifted?
Liquid?
Yes, it was Liquid.
Really?
Yeah, it's Liquid because one of their records had they were being extreme. Everybody was experimenting with DJ-friendly stuff, and one of their records had 1 million breakout tracks on it. Here's the this percussion part, here's that percussion part, here's the bass part, here's this, here's that, here's the other, and one of them is New York is Red Hot, and I think Douglas knew where that was. He said, "Oh yeah, this will work great." I thought it was the Peach Boys, but I think it's Liquid.
That is just the shit.
Yeah, it's nice, isn't it? I mean, we were happy to be able to do that. Mm-hmm.
Lesson 3. Like you said, Herman Kelly and Life Dance to the Drummer's Beat, and all the other breaks, the Led Zeppelin and all the other stuff. Do you think that track introduced people that would have never heard those breaks to breaks in general?
I mean, I think that was supposed to be the idea. Whether or not it made that, it made that leap in intent. I mean, it wasn't our intent. Our intent was, wow, what a great thing, we can make another record. And, we can use the history of hip-hop, so we're going to have a whole bunch of different breaks in it, and this will be fun. But whether or not it actually crossed over like that, I don't know. It's hard for me to tell. Because I wasn't going to clubs other than hip-hop clubs and listening to radio other than hip-hop radio at that time.
I personally think that it definitely did. I mean, all those breaks were sampled on massive hits later, like Young MC Bust a Move and Prince Paul with the Led Zeppelin thing.
Yeah, but I think a lot of those guys knew that stuff. Well, the Led Zeppelin thing, maybe, that was, Douglas edited the crunge down.
Very well, yeah.
And yeah, right. Oh, definitely very well. I mean, that particular edit has shown up on a number of other records. And he totally knew that one. I mean, he was like, he was like, get out of the way. I'm going to do this before we do anything. It was like awesome. It was like
the monster.
That's really good. Yeah.
Where does the Hernando's Hideaway thing? What's that from?
Hernando's Hideaway is from a Broadway show called The Pajama Game, and it was a huge radio hit when I was a kid by Archie Blyer and his orchestra. And it was one of those, when I was going around with lists when I started collecting records of every record I ever liked.
Right.
I would be in Downstairs Records, and I probably went through every stack of records in Downstairs Records, and they had a show tune section. I looked through it, I was like, Hernando's Hideaway. I took it over to the turntable. I listened to it, and I was like, fuck, that's great. Okay, fine, taking that.
That's personally my favorite part.
Oh, thanks very much.
Totally.
I really like it. Yeah, I was glad to be able to ring that in. There's a mix I have online now that I did. I'll send you the link to it. And I used the Mills Brothers doing Caravan over an old hip hop break called Two Pigs and a Hog from the Cooley High soundtrack. And there's another one of those. I was like happy to be able to get that in because Caravan is one of the greatest songs ever. And to be able, when I was looking around, I found out, who knew? I had 3 versions by the Mills Brothers, and this one just like, that's perfect. That works really great.
It spoke to you.
Yes, it spoke to me. Well, there's a lot that speaks to me. That's the problem. I have to take messages sometimes, but it was fun. It's nice to be able to do something like that. That I feel is one of the things that I can do because I've been listening to music for longer than a lot of people that are listening to my shit, so, it's not like I'm lording it over them or anything, but it's like, here, check this out.
Yep.
Check out what happens when you do this.
Did you ever hear from any of the artists that you sampled?
Trying to think. Not that I can remember, no. Mills Brothers are all dead. But
so out of all the stuff you've ever sampled, you've never gotten feedback from anybody or any static or anything, huh?
I don't know, not really. I mean, obviously you hear from people who've been listening to the records. I don't recall ever having heard from any of the artists whose records we sampled.
Huh. Let's switch gears real quick to the Scratch movie.
Oh, sure.
How'd you get involved in that?
That was, I think, Lucas, Cut Chemist and Shadow both were very generous when they were being interviewed by Doug, the director, and they said, oh, you definitely need these guys in there. You need Double D and Steinsky. So I got a call from these guys saying, oh, we're doing a movie about scratch DJs. We're going to be in the East, and we're going to be talking to people. And they came by my place, and, we chatted some, and, I was my usual hyper self, so I guess they figured, okay, that's good. And we were going to get Douglas, too. And then Douglas was sick the day of the filming. And I think he's regretted it somewhat. He's by nature kind of reclusive, but I think he did regret that. And they came by my place with a crew of people, and it's fun talking. To a certain extent, it's fun talking about that stuff. And these guys were, I'm enough of a ham, so that it's like, wow, I'm going to be on camera. Oh, this would be really great. And it was fun. I mean, they ended up sending me all the stuff they shot on me, which was probably, I don't know, maybe an hour's worth of stuff, and obviously they only used about 5 minutes. But, they overshot everybody in the film, I'm sure, and I was one of the context guys. It wasn't like I was, Mixmaster Mike or,
right.
something like that. And it was great. It was very gratifying, and they were very, very nice guys to work with, and I've been in touch with them subsequently, and they're good fellas.
Your segment and the DJ Shadow segment with him in the basement of the record store are my favorite segments in the whole thing.
Yeah. I mean, it's certainly him, because, he's been digging for an insane amount of time and really going at it. Everybody who, who's a record collector has those stories. Not necessarily dead bat stories about, oh yeah, I found this one place once, and I was amazed. I was at the gym the other day, and I go to this Y in Hackensack, and it's by the time I get there like 9:30. It's only retired people, who don't do anything except go to the gym and then go home and talk on the phone to their grandchildren. So I'm there, I'm on the treadmill listening to my iPod. And this guy walks in. He's wearing a T-shirt. It's got a huge picture of a 45 adapter on the front. I think to myself, oh, why the fuck did that come from? And it's got some writing on the back, and I didn't really see what it said. So, I finish and I go over to the guy and I said, "You mind if I ask you something? That's a great shirt." He said, "Oh, thanks. Yeah, it's funny. Somebody else said that too." I said, "Where'd you get that?" He said, "Oh, the record store around the corner." I said, "What do you mean around the corner?" He said, "Right up the street." I said, "From here?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "That's open now?"
Let's go.
"Yeah." He said, "There's a store." He said, they got all these like old 45s. He said, I said, "Are you like a collector?" He said, "No, I just like records. It's okay. I buy these shirts as presents for my friends." Like, well, fuck me. I said, "Now where is it exactly?"
Yeah.
He said, "That's across the street, down 2 blocks a minute." I was there. And I'm going to be, I'm taking a couple of those shirts on tour. If I'm going to wear anything, I'm going to wear that.
That's definitely the gear you want to use.
Yeah. But still, that's like, it's digging stuff. And it's a great little store, too. It's not like a total digger store. It's mainly reissues, and it's mainly, I'm sure you get a lot of people coming in. "Hi, anyone have Heartbreak Hotel by Elvis Presley on a 7-inch? I got like a jukebox at home," that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So that's really what it's about. But, I walked in and I said, "So, okay, you got a lot of 7-inches here." He's like, yeah. I said, "You know what you want?" And I said, "No, but I'll probably just come back and browse." So I was going to go today, but I got up too late, unfortunately. I had to go out and see my mom. So I might stop down, probably not tomorrow, but I'll stop in on Monday and see if he's got the T-shirts in yet.
Killer.
Yeah, that was great. Digging stories, those are good. But I like Shadow's story in that.
The one part of you when you're talking about going down the stairs with your girlfriend and hearing the drums.
It's in the grill.
I was bugging out when I heard that, because
It's really the truth. I was just, that was my first exposure to it really loud. And it was, it wouldn't have mattered if she had disappeared as I went down the stairs. It was just so intense. It was the Cold Crush brothers that were there that night.
Really?
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Kaz, and I've subsequently met and worked with Kaz, which was pretty great.
To say the least, I'm sure he's definitely a legend.
Yeah. And good when he puts his mind to it, man.
Are you shocked that people are still listening to your stuff and discovering your stuff almost 25 years later than the early stuff?
Yes. Yes, I am. And shocked is about the right word for it too. It's an honor. It's pretty great. I played a party that a friend of mine has out in Williamsburg on Saturday. And my wife was there, because she likes to come to these things when she can, when I'm not, when she doesn't have to get up the next morning or something. So we were there, and there was a succession of people that came by to have their pictures taken with me.
Wicked.
And it was, she said, "So who are all these young girls?" I said, "Fuck, I don't know. They want to have their picture taken with me." And they were like, "Oh, I really dig your records." I was like, "Well, thanks a lot."
If you really think about it, that weekend that you did the first lesson, if somebody came into the room and said, "Hi, I'm from the future, and in 2006, people will be paying $150 for this," I'm sure you wouldn't have believed them.
Well, I don't know. We were high enough that we might have. It's possible.
You might have bought anything at that point, I guess.
Yeah, right. You're from the future. Solid, man. Sit down. No, you're right. I would not have. I still have a hard time believing it. First time I DJ'd in England, which was, Jesus Christ, probably 10 years ago, I could not believe the stuff that was going on. I played the second night. I opened for Cold Cut 2 nights, and the second night we played in Brighton at some convention center, and I finished my set, and I walked over to the side, and I'm just standing there, and this guy comes up to me, and he said, "You Steinsky?" And I said, "Yeah, I am." He said, "I want to shake your hand." And he took my hand in both of his, and he said, "Thank you for making those records, man. They changed my life." And it was, you know, I mean, I'm used to clients calling me up going, "Where's the work?" You know, not, "Hey, you changed our lives."
Yeah.
And this happened 3 or 4 times. I mean, I had to call Douglas and go, "Douglas, you're just simply not going to believe this."
It's an amazing statement, you know.
It's astonishing, man. I mean, I didn't even, you know, it's not like I was one of these people who grew up strumming a guitar, thinking, you know, seeing myself in my mind in some sort of a, you know, a white fringed vest jumping around on a stage. I was an advertising writer who was like a record nerd, and who I liked hip hop, and that this should happen, that people should be paying attention to that I'm actually remembered in the world, is like, this is astonishing to me. I totally cannot believe it, that I have the opportunity at age 55 to pack up some electronic equipment and a computer, and I'm going to be flying in 2 weeks to Budapest, Paris, Italy, and the UK to do DJ gigs. I was like, this is amazing.
Yeah.
Guys my age, my guys from my high school that I have dinner with, they're talking about retiring.
And you're talking about that B-side.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
I'm talking about, yeah, you know, this is really awesome. I'm going to tour, going to do this, going to see if I can get myself into a couple of these festivals, you know, and like this. And it's like, well, damn, man, you know, I mean, life certainly does have some interesting twists and turns that I wouldn't have been able to predict.
Nostradamus would have missed it.
right, Nostradamus. Hell yeah.
How did the Sugar Hill Megamix thing come about? With Rhino, right?
No, the Sugar Hill Megamix was with the people who licensed that from England. Which,
okay.
The actual label was Antidote, but the company that owned the licensing was Castle. And their A&R guy is a very nice, talented British DJ who goes by the name DJ Yoda. And he got in touch with me and he said, "We own this. Would you be interested in doing this?" And I was able to use a lot of other of their catalog. They also owned the All Platinum catalog and the Invictus catalog. So I was able to use a lot of other material in there.
To jump around a bit, yeah.
Jump around a bit, and it was really a lot of fun. Really happy to do that. I haven't listened to it for years, and I listened to it again the other day because I burnt a copy of it to give to someone, and I thought, oh yeah, you know, this isn't so bad. It was fun having cut Chemist and Prince Paul on there. It was pretty great.
It's definitely working without a doubt.
Yeah.
I got a few more, and then we are done.
Okay.
Favorite films? Couple.
Favorite film?
Yeah.
Oh wow. Okay. Well, probably most of the Marx Brothers films. The In-Laws, the original In-Laws, with Peter Falk and Alan Arkin. The Producers, certainly, the original Producers. God, that's probably, that's right up there with one of the funniest films ever. Woody Allen's Sleeper. I mean, obviously I tend towards, you know, the Jewish humor. You know, this is, you know, Sleeper has moments in it that are just vomitatiously fabulous, incredibly funny. Whew, jeez. After that, it kind of goes into a bunch of things. My Left Foot's pretty great. I love Daniel Day-Lewis. He's a really good actor. Damn, I mean, right off the top like this, it's hard. There's a very low-key, small movie called The Gig that's really awesome, that I really, really like, about a little amateur Dixieland band. Another kind of small movie called Hear My Song, which is really good, which has as a co-star one of my favorite guys, Ned Beatty.
Mr. Squeal himself.
Yeah, Mr. Squeal himself, yeah. But he's done a lot of other things.
What a bum rap that is.
Yeah. Yeah, really, what a bum rap.
I love your work. Squeal!
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And, I mean, after that, there's going to be a whole lot that I would do, but right off the top, those would be the favorite films.
Cool. What about favorite food?
Favorite food? Oh my God, are you asking the wrong person? I am such a boring eater.
Give me one.
God, one. Let's see.
Dinner.
Dinner. Well, I can't say dinner, but practically anything from a good bakery. You know, I'm death when it comes to baked goods.
Baked goods, man.
Yeah, there's a bakery over in Teaneck called Butterflake, which is just I don't go to the Butterflake.
Shout out to Butterflake.
Shout out to Butterflake. Yeah, seriously, shout out to Butterflake. Yeah.
Send comped goods too.
Send comped goods.
P.O. Box.
That'd be nice.
What's the worst job you've ever had?
Oh my God, get in line.
Give me the hellish one.
Hellish. Well, I actually dug ditches.
There you go.
You know, I actually dug ditches for an interstate highway, and I worked with non-union guys. This was in New Hampshire, which did not have a union law. This would have been after I left college. I got a job digging ditches on this ground. I mean, seriously, digging ditches, you know, it's like your mother said, well, if you don't finish college, you're going to wind up digging ditches. I didn't finish college. I wound up digging ditches. And I remember being in this ditch one day with this alcoholic Southerner who was there, who just basically traveled with this company doing whatever. And we're standing in this ditch, which is about as high as our heads, and it starts to pour rain. And I mean pour, you know, like a cow pissing on a flat rock. And I turned to this guy who's next to me in the ditch, and I went, what now? He said, keep digging, you ain't going to melt. And so we kept digging.
That's classic.
In the mud, completely soaked through. It's like, yeah, that was a pretty nasty job.
I'd say that ranks.
I've washed dishes and done other of the, you know, the picturesque low-level jobs, but that was about the worst.
Digging the ditch would be bad, yeah. Is there anything you're working on at the moment?
Yeah, actually, I'm doing a remix of the Skull Snaps. It's a New Day.
Oh, cool.
For the company that owns the rights to that, which is 1012 Records in Brooklyn, my friend Eric Pomeroy.
Interesting.
Yeah. And, you know, I mean, my regular commercial stuff. I'm doing the soundtrack for a softcore porn animated film that a friend of mine is doing. And I do, you know, just commercial work for whoever.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, the softcore porn thing, does that require any waka waka, or they've passed that these days?
Well, there's actually, I mean, it is so softcore, in fact, that it's basically cartoon girls with big boobs.
Oh, so there is no waka waka?
There's no waka waka. It's all very, you know, it's all by insinuation. You know?
Oh, I gotcha, yeah.
Cut to the candle, cut to the next scene, that kind of thing, you know.
All right, there's a couple more things, and then we are finished, I promise.
That's all right.
Is there anything you want to say to the DJs and producers and beat junkies out there? Like any statement you want to tell them? Anything you'd like to say to them?
Yes, stop making me feel so inadequate.
Are they reinventing the wheel on you?
Oh, no. I mean, there's so much good stuff coming out of people. Like I said, it really does make me feel inadequate. You know, no, there's no question about it. There's nothing I can say in that respect, because I haven't really produced enough original stuff to be able to opine about that. You know, everybody should get in there and have a good time and, you know, fuck copyright.
That's the most important thing.
Yeah, probably, yeah.
If you had today's technology when you were doing the lessons and the early stuff, would the records have sounded differently?
Yeah, because we did do another record that isn't regarded as a lesson properly, but we did it for, I think, Tommy Boy's 10th anniversary. And we did the treatment on Jazzy Sensation by Africa Bambaataa in 1935. And that was digital, and it was a lot more involved.
Now, do you think if you had the technology, it would have been better but less organic, or?
Yeah, I mean, listen, man, there's going to be people who go, well, you use tape and records. It's not organic right there. How come you didn't play it? So, I mean, you can go all the way back to, and, you know, you didn't play it yourselves. So
it goes on and on and on.
Yeah,
and on.
I mean, you can drive yourself mad with that. You know, if you like it, it's good. You know.
That's the bottom line, I guess.
Yeah.
I definitely want to thank you for taking time out to speak to me.
Oh, sure, man. Very enjoyable. I mean, send me your address, and I'll hit you off with a couple of records, and I'll send you my address. If you can send me some of that vinyl that you've worked on, it sounds kind of interesting. I'd really like to hear it.
Yeah, I'll definitely send you a package out, without a doubt.
Yeah, okay.
Again, thanks a lot, and I'm sure the people...
Thank you. I look forward to, you know, hearing it, seeing it, whatever you're going to do with it on the website.
Yeah, definitely.
And let me know when that's up.
Oh, no doubt.
This is very nice. And if you're in the neighborhood, give me a shout. Come by, man. You know, I mean, if you're knocking around, you know, you're in Jersey, so.
If you're into doing lunch, I'd definitely be into doing lunch with you.
Oh yeah, I work at home, man.
Oh, cool.
I work at home, so you know we can hook up.
But in the meantime, I'll bounce you my info and get some packaged goods out to you.
Please do. Likewise.
And again, I appreciate it, man.
Yeah, thank you.
And I'll speak to you shortly.
You bet.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.